Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant, staring at the tactical display with growing unease. 3 more solar systems had vanished from the galactic map in the past 12 hours, not destroyed, not conquered, simply gone as if they had never existed. "Captain, we're receiving another emergency transmission from the Galactic Council," Lieutenant Amy Brooks said from her station. Her young face looked pale in the blue light of the monitors. Jake nodded. "Put it through." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a being that resembled a tall silver mantis. This was Coordinator Varix, one of the Council's senior military commanders. The alien's compound eyes reflected a fear that Jake had never seen before in any Council species. "Captain Morrison, Earth's fleet is being recalled immediately. All vessels must return to defend the home world." Varix's translator made his voice sound flat and emotionless, but Jake could hear the tremor underneath. "The situation has become critical." "What exactly are we facing?" Jake asked. "Your last briefing mentioned unknown hostiles but gave no details." Varix was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his words chilled Jake to the bone. "We do not know what they are. We do not know where they came from. We only know that they consume everything. Stars, planets, ships, people, everything. We have lost 12 civilizations in 3 weeks. The Krell Empire threw their entire armada against the enemy 2 days ago. Nothing survived." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Krell were the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They had warships the size of moons and weapons that could crack planets. If they had fallen. "How long do we have?" Jake asked quietly. "At current speed, the swarm will reach the core worlds in 6 weeks. Earth lies on a direct path. You have perhaps 4 weeks," Varix paused. "Captain, the Council is convening on Centralis Prime. Earth has been invited to send a representative. Your government has chosen you." The transmission ended before Jake could respond. Commander Kyle Pierce stepped up beside him. Kyle was a solid man with graying hair and calm eyes that had seen 20 years of space service. 4 weeks, he said softly. "My daughter's birthday is in 5. Jake looked at his second-in-command. Kyle had shown him pictures of his family 100 times. A wife who taught music, a 10-year-old daughter who wanted to be an astronaut. They lived in Colorado in a house with a mountain view. "Set course for Centralis Prime," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." The journey took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time reading reports and watching footage of the swarm's attacks. What he saw made no sense. The enemy didn't use conventional weapons or tactics. They simply swarmed over everything like a living wave, absorbing matter and energy. Ships that fired on them found their weapons useless. Energy shields failed. Kinetic weapons passed through the swarm like water. Dr. Lisa Grant, the Valiant's chief science officer, joined him in his ready room on the second day. Lisa was a woman in her 40s with sharp green eyes and a mind that never stopped working. She had spent 2 decades studying alien biology, including some of the most dangerous organisms in known space. "I've been analyzing the footage," she said, pulling up holographic displays. "This isn't technology. It's biological. Every individual in the swarm is a living creature, but they operate as a collective intelligence, like a hive mind but far more sophisticated." "Can we kill them?" Jake asked bluntly. Lisa frowned. "The Council species have tried everything. Plasma weapons, antimatter bombs, viral agents, radiation. Nothing works. The swarm adapts instantly to any threat." She looked at Jake with worry in her eyes. "I think they might be unkillable by conventional means." When the Valiant arrived at Centralis Prime, Jake found a planet in chaos. Refugee ships filled orbital space, and the streets below teemed with displaced beings from hundreds of worlds. The proud capital of galactic civilization looked like a disaster zone. The Council chamber was a massive dome that could hold representatives from 10,000 species. Today it felt empty. So many seats were vacant, their occupants already consumed by the swarm. Jake took his place in the human delegation section, feeling small among the giants of galactic civilization. Species that had mastered space travel when Earth was still in its ice age. Beings who had built wonders across the stars. All of them looked terrified. The session began with a military briefing that confirmed Jake's worst fears. The swarm was unstoppable. Every defense had failed. Every weapon proved useless. Trillions were dead and trillions more would follow. "We must consider evacuation beyond the galactic rim," suggested one delegate, a floating orb of light that spoke in musical tones. "Abandon the galaxy and rebuild elsewhere." Impossible, countered another voice. We cannot move our entire civilization. There are not enough ships, not enough time. The debate continued for hours, going in circles. Jake listened to the galaxy's greatest minds admit they had no answers. No hope, no plan. Finally, an ancient being called the eldest speaker rose. It looked like a tree made of crystal, old beyond measure. When it spoke, everyone fell silent. There is an old prophecy, the eldest speaker said in a voice like wind through stone. It speaks of the galaxy's darkest hour, when death comes from the void. It says that salvation will come from warriors of a death world, beings who learned to survive where all others would perish. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Jake felt eyes turning toward the human section. Myth, someone scoffed. We need solutions, not ancient stories. The eldest speaker's crystalline form shimmered. Perhaps. But consider this. Every species in this chamber evolved on gentle worlds where nature provided. Only one species here comes from a planet that tried to kill them every day. Only one species learned to fight against impossible odds and win. All eyes were now definitely on Jake. An elder from the Krell remnant stood. Despite his people's recent devastation, he maintained his dignity. The human species is young. They have been part of the council for only 30 years. What could they possibly offer that our ancient civilizations cannot? Jake felt anger flash through him. He stood up, his voice carrying across the vast chamber despite being so much smaller than most beings present. You're right, he said. We're young. We're new. We don't have your technology or your knowledge. He paused, looking around at thousands of alien faces. But we have something you lost a long time ago. We remember how to fight dirty. We remember how to survive when everything wants us dead. Earth isn't a paradise. It's a world of volcanoes, earthquakes, predators, diseases, and disasters. We didn't master our planet. We learned to survive it despite everything it threw at us. The chamber was silent. You want to know what humans can offer? Jake continued. We can offer the one thing death worlds teach. We don't give up. Ever. Even when it's hopeless, even when it's stupid, even when everyone says it's impossible. We fight. That's what we do. The eldest speaker made a sound like crystal bells ringing. Then perhaps the prophecy is not myth after all. Captain Morrison, will Earth stand with the galaxy? Jake thought of Kyle's daughter, of billions of humans who would die if the swarm reached Earth, of all the species in this chamber, terrified and desperate. Yes, he said simply. We'll stand. He just wished he knew how. Jake Morrison watched the tactical updates streaming into the Valiant's command center. 3 more systems had fallen in the past 24 hours. The enemy moved like a dark tide, consuming everything in its path. Refugee ships fled ahead of it, desperate to stay alive for just one more day. Earth's government had responded to the Council's plea with unexpected speed. Every available warship was being mobilized. The civilian population was being evacuated to underground shelters. Orbital defense platforms were being armed with humanity's most powerful weapons. But Jake knew it would not be enough. If the Krell Empire had failed, what chance did humanity have? Captain, Dr. Grant wants to see you in the lab, Amy Brooks said. She says it's urgent. Jake found Lisa in the science bay, surrounded by holographic displays and sample containers. She looked like she had not slept in days, but her eyes were bright with excitement. I found something, she said without preamble. Look at this. She pulled up a microscopic image showing swarm tissue samples that Amy's team had managed to collect during a quick reconnaissance mission. The tissue looked like black crystal, pulsing with an inner light. This is the swarm at a cellular level, Lisa explained. It's incredibly sophisticated. Each cell can process information, store energy, and adapt to threats. It's like every piece of the swarm is a tiny computer. She zoomed in further. But watch what happens when I introduce this. She added a drop of something to the sample. The swarm tissue immediately began to convulse and break apart. What is that? Jake asked, leaning closer. Common Earth bacteria, Lisa said with a strange smile. Specifically E. coli, one of the most basic organisms on our planet. Jake stared at her. You're saying that Earth germs can kill the swarm? Not just germs. I've tested other samples. Earth fungi, viruses, even common molds. They all produce a reaction. The swarm cells try to adapt, but they struggle. Lisa's expression turned serious. I think I know why. Jake, when was the last time you heard of a council species dealing with a disease outbreak? Jake thought about it. Never. They have perfect medicine. They eliminated all diseases thousands of years ago. Exactly, Lisa said. They sanitized themselves. They sanitized their worlds. They created perfectly clean environments where nothing harmful could survive. She pointed at the dying swarm tissue. But Earth is a dirty world. We have billions of microorganisms. Our bodies carry trillions of bacteria. We've been fighting diseases and infections for our entire evolutionary history. We never eliminated them because we couldn't. We just learned to live with them. Understanding dawned on Jake. And the swarm has never encountered anything like Earth biology. More than that, Lisa said, her voice rising with excitement. The swarm is a collective organism. Every piece is connected through some kind of biological network. If we can infect one part with Earth microorganisms, it might spread through the entire swarm. Jake felt hope stirring for the first time in days. Can you weaponize it? I think so. But I'll need resources, labs, scientists, time. Lisa met his eyes. And I'll need the Council to approve biological warfare. That last part was going to be the hard part. Jake called for an emergency council meeting. When he explained Lisa's discovery, the reaction was exactly what he had feared. Biological warfare is barbaric, declared a delegate who looked like a floating jellyfish. We banned such weapons 8,000 years ago. They are cruel, unpredictable, and beneath civilized beings. We tried biological agents already, added the Krell representative. The swarm adapted to them in minutes. Your primitive diseases will fail just as quickly. Jake kept his temper in check. Our diseases are different. They evolved on a death world. They're designed to survive in the harshest conditions. They mutate, they adapt, they fight back. That's what makes them dangerous. And that's what makes them too dangerous to use, the jellyfish delegate said firmly. Once released, you cannot control them. They could spread to our own populations. Your populations will be dead if we don't stop the swarm, Jake shot back. The debate raged for hours. Some delegates supported the idea, desperate for any solution. Others called it a return to savagery. A few suggested that Earth was using the crisis to gain power. Finally, Kyle Pierce stood up from the human delegation. He was usually quiet during these meetings, preferring to let Jake do the talking. But now his voice rang out clear and strong. My daughter is 10 years old, he said. She lives on Earth. She wants to be an astronaut when she grows up. She has dreams. He looked around the chamber. All of your children had dreams too. All of those trillions who died had dreams. The swarm doesn't care about civilization or ethics or how barbaric we are. It just consumes. So you can debate philosophy while the galaxy burns, or you can let us try to save it. The chamber fell silent. The eldest speaker rose, its crystal form catching the light. The human speaks truth. We face extinction. In such times we cannot afford pride. It turned to Jake. Captain Morrison, the Council grants Earth permission to develop and deploy biological countermeasures against the swarm. You have 2 weeks before the enemy reaches the core worlds. Use them well. The vote passed, though barely. Jake immediately contacted Earth's government. Within hours, the best scientists from across the planet were being transported to Luna Station, humanity's largest orbital facility. Lisa would lead the project, coordinating with military weapons specialists and medical researchers. The next 10 days were a blur of activity. Jake stayed aboard the Valiant, coordinating with Earth's defense forces while Lisa worked on the weapon. Kyle managed the logistics, moving resources and personnel across human space. Amy trained strike teams for the mission that everyone knew was coming. They would need to deliver the biological weapon directly to the swarm's core. Nothing less would work. Jake received daily reports from Lisa. The news was mixed. Earth's microorganisms did affect the swarm, but the enemy adapted faster than expected. They needed something more aggressive, more persistent. Lisa's team began genetic modification, creating enhanced versions of Earth's most dangerous pathogens. It's like fighting fire with fire, Lisa explained during one video call. She looked exhausted but determined. We're using evolution as a weapon, creating organisms that evolve faster than the swarm can adapt. Is it working? Jake asked. We're getting there. But Jake, we're running out of time. She was right. The swarm had accelerated its advance. New projections showed it would reach the core worlds in 10 days, not 2 weeks. And Earth lay directly in its path. Kyle received a message from his wife. She and their daughter were being evacuated to a deep underground shelter in the Rocky Mountains. The message was cheerful. trying to stay positive, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. "Say hi to Daddy for me," Kyle's daughter said to the camera, waving. "Come home soon." Kyle played the message 3 times before shutting it off. He sat in silence for a long moment, then looked at Jake. "We're going to need volunteers," he said quietly. "Someone has to deliver this weapon into the heart of the swarm. It'll be a one-way trip." "I know," Jake said. "I'm volunteering," Kyle said. "My family is worth fighting for. Everyone's family is worth fighting for." Jake nodded. "Then I'm going too. The Valiant will be the delivery vessel." News of the mission spread quickly through the ship. Jake expected people to request transfers, to try to escape the suicide run. Instead, every single crew member volunteered to stay. Amy Brooks came to his ready room that night. "Sir, I want to be on the strike team. I know I'm young, but I can fight. And someone needs to protect the science team while they deploy the weapon." "Why?" Jake asked her. "Why volunteer for certain death?" Amy was quiet for a moment. "I have a little brother. He's 17. He wants to join the Space Force next year." She smiled sadly. "I want him to have that chance. I want him to have a future. If dying gives him that, then it's worth it." Jake looked at this young woman, barely 25 years old, willing to give everything. He saw the same determination in her eyes that he had seen in Kyle's, in Lisa's, in every human face around him. Maybe the eldest speaker was right. Maybe Earth's greatest strength was not technology or weapons, but simply the refusal to surrender. "All right," he said. "You're on the team." 2 weeks after the council vote, Lisa contacted him with the final report. "We have it," she said. Her face showed exhaustion and triumph. "Genesis bombs. Biological weapons carrying enhanced Earth pathogens. They'll spread through the swarm's network like wildfire." She paused. "But Jake, they need to be deployed inside the swarm's central structure. The hive mind. Otherwise, the swarm can isolate and destroy infected sections." "How deep?" Jake asked. "As deep as you can go, preferably to whatever passes for their brain." Jake nodded. "Then that's where we'll go." The Valiant was being retrofitted at Luna Station, receiving experimental engines and weapon systems. Earth's remaining fleet was assembling, preparing to escort them through swarm territory. Jake stood on the observation deck looking down at Earth. Somewhere down there, Kyle's daughter was playing in her shelter. Amy's brother was probably watching the news. Lisa's family was waiting for her to come home. Billions of people counting on them. "We won't let you down," Jake whispered to the blue planet below. 200 human warships, everything Earth could spare, formed up around the Valiant. They were small compared to the massive vessels the Council species had built. Earth's technology was still decades behind the galactic standard. But every ship carried weapons, crew who knew how to use them, and a determination that had carried humanity through countless wars. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the fleet assemble through the view screen. This was it, the moment everything had been leading to. "All ships report ready, Captain," Amy Brooks said from her station. She had spent the last week training with the strike team, learning how to move through hostile territory. Her hands were steady on the controls, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. "Fleet Command sends their regards," Kyle Pierce added. "And their prayers." Jake activated the ship-wide comm. "This is Captain Morrison. In a few hours we'll enter swarm territory. Most of us won't be coming back." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I won't lie to you. This mission is suicide. The swarm has destroyed fleets 10 times our size. We're flying into the mouth of something that has consumed entire civilizations." He could see his crew listening on monitors throughout the ship, young faces and old, veterans and rookies. All of them had volunteered for this. "But we're human," Jake continued. "We're from Earth. And Earth taught us something that the rest of the galaxy forgot. It taught us that when everything looks hopeless, that's when you fight harder. That's when you dig deeper. That's when you show the universe what you're made of." His voice grew stronger. "We're going to fly into hell itself. We're going to plant our weapon in the heart of the enemy. And we're going to save the galaxy. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we refuse to quit. That's what humans do. We survive." The comm channels erupted in cheers. "All ships," Jake ordered. "Jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Space twisted. The fleet jumped. They emerged at the outer edge of swarm territory, and Jake's blood went cold. The tactical display showed thousands of red contacts. No, tens of thousands. The swarm was everywhere. A dark cloud that stretched across light years. Holy God, Kyle whispered. The swarm noticed them immediately. The dark mass began to move, flowing toward the human fleet like water. All ships, combat formation, Jake ordered. Clear us a path. The battle began. Human ships opened fire with everything they had. Missiles, plasma cannons, railguns. The weapons lit up space with deadly light. Some shots hit the swarm creatures, destroying them in bursts of dark matter. But for everyone that died, 10 more took its place. The swarm swarmed over the outer ships, covering them like locusts. Jake watched in horror as the USS Courage disappeared under a wave of black bodies. The ship's hull buckled and collapsed. Within seconds, it was gone. Keep moving, Jake shouted. Don't let them surround you. The fleet pushed forward, ships firing in all directions. The swarm was adapting already, learning human tactics. Creatures began forming shields, absorbing weapon fire. Others attacked in coordinated waves, targeting engines and weapon systems. More ships fell. The Denver, the Singapore, the New Hope. Each one died buying seconds for the others. Lisa Grant worked frantically in the science bay, monitoring the swarm's behavior. Captain, they're studying us. Every attack we make, they learn from it. We need to keep changing tactics. Acknowledged, Jake said. He switched to fleet command. All ships, randomize your attack patterns. Don't let them predict you. The human captains responded with creativity born of desperation. Some ships flew erratic courses, making themselves hard to target. Others used debris as shields. One brave captain rammed his damaged vessel into a swarm cluster, detonating his reactor and clearing a temporary hole in the enemy formation. Valiant, this is Captain Martinez on the Aztec, a voice came through the comm. We're not going to make it through, taking heavy damage. Permission to run interference? Jake knew what that meant. Permission granted. Good luck, Captain. See you on the other side, Morrison. Give them hell. The Aztec and 5 other ships broke formation, turning to face the pursuing swarm. They bought the Valiant precious minutes with their sacrifice. After 3 hours of fighting, the fleet had been cut in half. 100 ships remained, pressing deeper into swarm space. Jake's hands gripped his command chair so hard his knuckles were white. We're approaching the inner sphere, Kyle reported. Swarm density is increasing. How long until we reach the hive core? Jake asked. At current speed, 6 hours. But Captain, we're losing ships faster than anticipated. We might not have enough to create the corridor. Jake made a decision he had hoped to avoid. All ships, this is Morrison. The Valiant will proceed alone from here. All other vessels break off and create a diversion. Draw as many swarm units away from our path as possible. Captain, that's suicide, Amy protested. So is everything else we're doing, Jake said grimly. But this gives us the best chance. The fleet commanders understood. One by one, they acknowledged the order. It's been an honor, Captain Morrison, said one. Save the galaxy for us, said another. Earth forever, said a third. The fleet split. 99 ships turned to engage the swarm directly, weapons blazing. They fought with everything they had, pulling swarm forces away from the Valiant's path. The Valiant raced forward alone. Inside the ship, the crew worked in grim silence. Engineering kept the engines running beyond their normal limits. Weapons fired at anything that got close. Medical teams treated wounded crew members. Everyone did their part. Lisa came to the bridge 4 hours into the solo run. Jake, I'm picking up something strange. The swarm is trying to communicate. What? Jake looked at her in surprise. They're sending signals directly to our ship. It's not language exactly, but our computers are translating it. She pulled up the message on a display. The words were simple but chilling. Join, become, survive. They want us to join them? Kyle asked, horrified. Lisa nodded. I think the swarm is offering us a choice. Become part of their collective or die. More messages came through faster now. Resistance futile. Unity eternal. Join collective. Preserve consciousness. Live forever. Jake stared at the words. Live forever. Become part of something vast and powerful. Never die. Never lose. Never feel pain or fear again. It was tempting. God, it was tempting. Captain, they're showing us something, Amy said, her voice shaking. The view screen changed, showing images of the beings the swarm had absorbed. Millions of them, maybe billions, their minds preserved within the collective. They were still alive in some way, still conscious. Join us, the message said. Save your species. Bring Earth into unity. No more war. No more death. Only collective. Kyle turned to Jake. It's a lie, right? It has to be. Jake thought about it. Was it a lie? Or was the swarm genuinely offering them survival? Maybe joining would save humanity. Maybe it would save the galaxy. But at what cost? He thought of Kyle's daughter who wanted to be an astronaut, of Amy's brother, who wanted to join the Space Force, of all the individual humans with their individual dreams. No, Jake said firmly. It's not about survival. It's about remaining human. He activated the comm, broadcasting to the swarm. We refuse. Humanity doesn't give up its freedom. We don't give up our individuality. We'd rather die as ourselves than live as part of you. The swarm's response was immediate. The enemy forces intensified their attack, slamming into the Valiant from all sides. Shields failing. Kyle shouted. Hull breaches on decks 5 and 6. Keep going, Jake ordered. We're almost there. The ship shook violently. Sparks flew from control panels. The lights flickered. Hive core dead ahead, Amy reported. Distance 200,000 kilometers. Lisa activated the Genesis bombs, arming them. Deployment system ready. But Captain, the launch mechanism is damaged. We'll need to release them manually. Jake felt his stomach sink. How manually? Someone needs to take them into the hive structure on foot and trigger them from inside. Before Jake could respond, the ship lurched. Something massive had grabbed them. Swarm boarding parties, someone yelled. Dark shapes poured through the hull breaches, flowing into the ship like liquid night. They moved with terrifying speed, overwhelming the security teams. All hands repel boarders, Jake ordered. Crew members fought back with rifles and improvised weapons. Amy led a team to seal the breaches, firing at swarm creatures that tried to stop them. But there were too many. We can't hold them, Kyle shouted over the chaos. Jake made the hardest decision of his life. Abandon defensive positions. Everyone fall back to the bridge and engineering. Seal all other sections. The crew retreated, locking blast doors behind them. Half the ship was now infested with swarm creatures, but they were still moving forward. 100,000 kilometers to hive core, Amy reported, bleeding from a cut on her forehead. Lisa prepared the Genesis bombs for manual deployment. I'll take them in. No, Jake said. We all will. Kyle looked at him. The whole crew? We're already dead, Jake said simply. Might as well make it count. Through the view screen, they could see it now. The hive core, a massive structure of living tissue and dark energy, pulsing with alien intelligence. This was the brain of the swarm, the central mind that controlled trillions of creatures across the galaxy. The impact threw everyone forward. Jake Morrison slammed into his command chair, stars exploding across his vision. Alarms screamed. The ship groaned and buckled around them. For a moment he thought they had broken apart completely. Then the emergency lights flickered on and he realized they were still alive. Status report, he gasped, tasting blood. Kyle Pierce pulled himself up from the floor, checking his console. Half the screen was dead, but enough remained to give them information. We're inside the hive structure. Hull integrity at 20%. Life support failing. We have maybe 30 minutes of air. 30 minutes is all we need, Lisa Grant said. She was already on her feet, gathering the Genesis bombs into a portable container. The deployment point is about 200 meters from our current position. Straight through that. She pointed at the wall where dark organic matter was visible through a massive crack in the hull. Through the breach, they could see the inside of the hive. It looked like the interior of some vast creature, all pulsing tissue and flowing energy. Veins of light ran through the walls like blood vessels. The air shimmered with strange colors that hurt to look at. Looks inviting, Amy Brooks said dryly, checking her rifle. She had a deep cut across her arm, but she ignored it. All remaining crew suit up, Jake ordered. We're finishing this mission on foot. 47 people remained alive on the Valiant, 47 out of the original crew of 200. They gathered in the cargo bay, pulling on environmental suits and checking weapons. Nobody spoke much. There was nothing left to say. Jake looked at their faces, young and old, scared and determined, human. Let's move, and he said. They entered the hive through the hull breach, stepping into an alien nightmare. The organic walls pulsed around them, warm and wet. The ground felt spongy under their boots, like walking on flesh. Strange sounds echoed through the passages, clicks and whispers that might have been communication. Lisa led the way, following readings from her scanner. The Genesis bombs were in a case on her back, containing the weaponized Earth microorganisms that represented the galaxy's last hope. Swarm creatures appeared almost immediately. They flowed out of the walls, shapeless things that solidified into predatory forms. The humans opened fire, their weapons tearing into the creatures. "Keep moving," Jake shouted. "Don't stop!" They pushed forward through the living corridors, fighting every step. The swarm threw waves of creatures at them, trying to overwhelm them through sheer numbers. Human weapons roared. People fell, dragged down by dark shapes. Amy fought like a demon, her rifle never stopping. When she ran out of ammunition, she drew her sidearm. When that was empty, she used her knife. A swarm creature lunged at her, and she met it head-on, stabbing it repeatedly until it stopped moving. Kyle stayed near Lisa, protecting her and the precious cargo. His face was grim and focused. Once a creature got past his guard and slashed his leg. He stumbled but kept moving, refusing to slow down. 100 meters, Lisa called out, checking her scanner. The hive seemed to realize what they were doing. The attacks intensified. The walls themselves came alive, reaching for them with grasping tendrils. The floor tried to pull them down. The air grew thick and hard to breathe, even through their suit filters. More people fell. A young engineer named Tommy, a security officer named Patricia, a medical tech named Carlos. Each lost hurt, but they could not stop, could not slow down. 50 meters, Lisa said. They emerged into a vast chamber, and everyone stopped in shock. The room was filled with beings, thousands of them, maybe millions. They floated in the air, suspended in some kind of energy field. Jake recognized species from across the galaxy. Krell warriors, council diplomats, civilians from 100 worlds. All of them had been absorbed by the swarm. Their eyes were open. They were still conscious. "Help us," one of them whispered, the voice barely audible. "Please end this." Jake felt sick. These people were not dead. They were trapped, their minds imprisoned within the swarm's collective consciousness, aware but unable to act, feeling everything but powerless to stop it. This was what the swarm meant by joining. Not death, not peace, just eternal captivity. "Keep moving," he said quietly. They crossed the chamber of the damned, and Jake forced himself not to look at the faces. If he did, he would lose his mind. 20 meters, Lisa said. The final passage opened into a chamber that defied description. At the center floated something that might have been the swarm's brain, or its heart, or something humans had no words for. It pulsed with energy, connected to thousands of organic cables that spread through the entire hive. This was it, the central intelligence, the core of the collective. "Here," Lisa said, setting down the case. "This is the deployment point." She opened the container, revealing the Genesis bombs. 12 metal spheres, each one containing billions of weaponized Earth microorganisms. Bacteria, viruses, fungi. The entire arsenal of Earth's microscopic warriors, enhanced and ready to spread. "How do we set them off?" Kyle asked. Lisa's hands moved over the controls, arming the bombs. "There's a manual trigger. Someone needs to stay here and activate it once the rest of you evacuate." Jake started to volunteer, but Lisa held up her hand. "It has to be me, Jake. I need to monitor the deployment. Make sure the organisms spread correctly through the swarm's network." She smiled tiredly. "Besides, I'm the scientist. This is my work. Let me finish it." "Lisa," Jake began. "Go," she said firmly. "Get your people out of here. The bombs need 10 minutes to fully deploy. That's how long you have to get clear." Jake looked at her, this brilliant woman who had spent her life studying alien biology, who had created a weapon from Earth's most basic life forms, who was giving her life to save the galaxy. He saluted her. She saluted back, tears in her eyes. "All personnel fall back to the ship," Jake ordered. The remaining crew turned and ran. Behind them, Lisa knelt beside the Genesis bombs, preparing for the final activation. The retreat was a nightmare. The swarm threw everything at them, trying to stop their escape. The hive itself seemed to convulse, trying to trap them inside. Half the remaining crew died in the retreat. They fought and fell, buying time for their companions to escape. Each sacrifice hurt like a knife to Jake's heart. Amy took a hit protecting a wounded crewman, the blast tearing through her suit. She gasped, feeling the hive's toxic atmosphere burning her lungs. But she kept moving, kept firing, kept fighting. Kyle's wounded leg finally gave out. He fell, and Jake grabbed him, hauling him up. Together, they stumbled toward the ship. "Leave me," Kyle said through gritted teeth. "Shut up," Jake replied. They made it back to the Valiant with seconds to spare. 15 people. Out of 200, only 15 had survived. Jake carried Kyle to the bridge, setting him in a chair. Amy collapsed beside them, coughing blood. The others spread out, trying to get the ship's systems working. "Engineering, do we have power?" Jake called out. "Barely," someone responded. "Enough to move, maybe. But we won't survive the trip back through swarm territory." "We don't need to survive," Jake said. "We just need to get clear of the hive before the bombs go off." He activated the remaining engines. The Valiant shuddered, pulling free from the hive's flesh with a wet, tearing sound. They began to move slowly at first, then faster. Behind them, in the central chamber, Lisa Grant watched the countdown on her display. 5 minutes until deployment. She thought about her life. The discoveries she had made. The world she had seen. The friends she had known. It had been a good life. A meaningful life. She hoped the microorganisms would work. They were so simple, these Earth organisms. Just tiny living things doing what they did best. Surviving, spreading, adapting, just like humanity itself. 3 minutes. The swarm's consciousness pressed against her mind, trying one last time to convince her to join. "Unity," it whispered. "Peace, eternity." "No thanks," Lisa said out loud. "I'd rather die free." 2 minutes. She pulled up a photo on her datapad. Her family back on Earth, her parents, her sister. They were probably in a shelter now, waiting to hear if the mission had succeeded. "I did my best," she told them. 1 minute. Lisa Grant placed her hand on the activation trigger. "For Earth," she whispered. She pressed the button. The Genesis bombs exploded, not with fire or force, but with life. Trillions of microorganisms burst forth, flooding into the hive's organic matter. Bacteria touched the swarm's tissue and began to reproduce. Viruses found the swarm's cells and invaded. Fungi spread through the neural networks like wildfire. Earth's smallest warriors attacked with a ferocity born of billions of years of evolution. The swarm tried to adapt, tried to fight back, tried to isolate the infection, but it was too late. The microorganisms spread through the collective's shared network, jumping from one swarm creature to another across light years of space. The hive core began to die. Lisa felt it happening around her. The walls started to decay. The lights flickered and failed. The swarm's consciousness screamed in her mind, a sound of rage and fear and disbelief. Then it fell silent. Lisa Grant smiled as the darkness took her. On the bridge of the Valiant, Jake Morrison watched the hive core collapse through the view screen. The massive structure was breaking apart, dissolving into nothing. "It's working," Kyle said in wonder. "The infection is spreading." Jake Morrison sat in the captain's chair, watching the damage reports scroll across his console. The ship had maybe 6 hours of life support left. The engines were failing. They were stranded in the middle of swarm territory with no way to call for help. But it did not matter anymore. They had won. Across the galaxy, the swarm was collapsing. The infection spread through their collective network like a plague, killing the creatures by the billions. Swarm forces that had been advancing on core worlds suddenly stopped moving. Ships that had been consuming star systems went dark and drifted away. The unstoppable tide had been stopped. By Earth, by humanity, by microorganisms so simple that the Council had forgotten they even existed. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Amy Brooks said. She was lying on the floor now, too weak to sit up. The hive's atmosphere had damaged her lungs badly. "It's from the Council fleet." "Put it through," Jake said. The view screen flickered to life, showing Coordinator Verix. The alien looked different than before. The fear was gone from his compound eyes, replaced by something Jake had never seen there. Respect. "Captain Morrison," Verix said. "We have confirmed the swarm's collapse across all monitored sectors. The infection you deployed is spreading faster than the enemy can adapt. They are dying. The galaxy is saved." He paused. "We are tracking your position. Rescue ships are en route. Hold on for another 4 hours." "We'll try," Jake said. "Some of us might make it." "All of you will make it," Verix said firmly. "Every species in the Council is sending their fastest ships. You will be rescued, Captain. That is a promise." The transmission ended. Kyle Pierce laughed weakly from his station. "We actually survived." "I can't believe we actually survived." "Some of us," Jake said quietly, thinking of Lisa, of all the crew members who had fallen, of the other 99 ships that had sacrificed themselves. But 15 people from the Valiant would live. 15 witnesses to tell the galaxy what had happened. The next 4 hours were long. The crew drifted in and out of consciousness as the ship's systems failed one by one. The heat went first, leaving them shivering in the cold. Then the gravity, making them float through the corridors. The lights dimmed to emergency levels, but they held on. Jake spent the time thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Earth's history of struggle and survival, humanity's refusal to quit even when facing extinction, all the small choices that had brought them to this point. "Captain," Amy said suddenly, "I'm picking up multiple ships on sensors. Dozens of them." Through the view screen they saw them coming, ships from every council species, sleek vessels from the Centauri, massive carriers from the Andromeda Collective, even damaged Krell warships that had survived the earlier battles, all of them racing to save the human crew. The first ship to arrive was from the Council's medical corps. They docked with the Valiant and rushed aboard, carrying equipment and supplies. Alien doctors worked quickly, stabilizing the wounded and getting everyone onto breathing equipment. Jake was carried to the medical ship on a stretcher. As they took him through the airlock, he looked back at the Valiant one last time. The ship that had carried them into hell and somehow brought them back out. "Thank you," he whispered to it. The medical ship transported them to Centralis Prime. When they arrived, Jake could not believe what he saw. The entire orbital space around the planet was filled with ships. Millions of them. Vessels from every corner of the galaxy had come to witness the humans' return. Flags from 1,000 species flew in formation. As the medical ship approached the planet, the fleet began to signal. Ship after ship activated their lights, creating patterns in space. The patterns formed words in dozens of languages. "Thank you, Earth." Jake felt tears streaming down his face again. They landed at the Council's central spaceport, where medical teams were waiting to transfer the crew to proper hospitals. But before they could move, a delegation approached. The eldest speaker was there, its crystal form glowing. Coordinator Varric stood beside it. Representatives from hundreds of species had gathered, all of them wanting to see the humans who had saved the galaxy. "Captain Morrison," the eldest speaker said, its voice like crystal bells. "The prophecy has been fulfilled. The warriors from the Death World have saved us all in our darkest hour." Jake struggled to sit up on his stretcher. "We just did what we had to do. What anyone would have done." "No," Varric said. "No other species would have done what you did. We had forgotten how to fight like that, how to sacrifice like that, how to refuse surrender even when defeat seemed certain." He bowed deeply, something Jake had never seen a Council military commander do. "You did not just save the galaxy, Captain. You reminded us what it means to survive." Over the next few weeks, as the crew recovered in Council hospitals, the full extent of their victory became clear. The swarm was dying across the entire galaxy. The infection had spread through every connected organism, breaking the collective consciousness into pieces. Individual creatures either died or went dormant, no longer controlled by the hive mind. Trillions of beings who had been absorbed by the swarm were freed, though many did not survive the separation. Those who did had stories of horror and imprisonment that would haunt the galaxy for generations. The Council held a ceremony to honor the humans who had died in the battle. 200 names from the Valiant, thousands more from the other ships. Each name was read aloud and carved into a monument of eternal crystal that would orbit Centralis Prime forever. Jake stood at the ceremony, along with the other 14 survivors from the Valiant. Kyle was there, leaning on a cane. Amy was there, breathing through a portable respirator. The others stood in a line, honored and grieving. When they read Lisa Grant's name, Jake closed his eyes. He could see her in his memory, kneeling beside the Genesis bombs, ready to give everything for a galaxy that had once called Earth too primitive to matter. "She saved us all," he said quietly. The Council voted to grant humanity a new status. Earth was named a guardian species, given authority equal to the most ancient civilizations. Humans would help lead the Council, their voice carrying weight in all decisions. But more than that, Earth's philosophy spread across the galaxy. Species that had spent millennia in safe, sanitized environments began to remember older ways. They studied Earth's history of struggle and survival. They learned about death worlds and the strength they created. "Humans fight not because they are violent," one Council scholar wrote. "They fight because their world taught them that giving up means extinction, and they refused to go extinct." Jake Morrison returned to Earth 6 months after the battle. When his shuttle landed, millions of people had gathered to welcome him home. Flags waved. People cheered. Children held signs saying thank you. But Jake only had eyes for one group. Kyle's wife and daughter were there, waiting. When Kyle stepped off the shuttle, His daughter ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. His wife held him tight, tears streaming down her face. "You came home," she whispered. "I promised I would," Kyle said. Amy's brother was there too, wearing a cadet uniform. He had joined the Space Force just like he had wanted. When he saw Amy, he saluted her. "Permission to hug a superior officer?" he asked, grinning. Amy laughed and pulled him into her arms. Jake watched his crew reunite with their families. Watched life continuing. Watched the future they had fought to preserve. An older woman approached him. She had Lisa Grant's eyes. "You're Captain Morrison," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "My daughter spoke about you in her last messages. She said you were a good captain, that you cared about your crew." The woman's voice shook. "Did she suffer?" Jake thought about lying, but Lisa deserved better than that. "No," he said truthfully. "She died doing exactly what she wanted to do, saving lives through science. She was brave until the very end." The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for bringing her work home." She handed Jake a small box. Inside was Lisa's personal data pad, recovered from the Valiant's wreckage. On the screen was the last thing she had written. "To whoever finds this, the galaxy is worth saving. Never forget that. And never forget that even the smallest life form can change the universe. That is what Earth taught me. That is what I hope Earth teaches the galaxy." Jake held the datapad carefully like the treasure it was. In the years that followed, humanity spread across the galaxy, helping to rebuild what the swarm had destroyed. They brought with them the lessons of Earth: resilience, determination, the refusal to surrender. Colony ships terraformed dead worlds, turning them into new homes. Human engineers worked alongside council scientists, sharing knowledge. Human soldiers trained other species in tactics that death worlds taught. The galaxy changed. Species that had grown soft and comfortable remembered how to be strong. They learned to value struggle and growth. They understood that safety alone was not enough. You had to be willing to fight for what mattered. And always, always they remembered the crew of the Valiant. Jake Morrison lived a long life. He served as Earth's representative to the Council for 20 years before retiring. He watched humanity grow from a minor species into one of the galaxy's leaders. He saw the galaxy rebuild stronger than before. On his final day, surrounded by family and friends, Jake looked up at the stars.